Welcome to Horseplayer Happy Hour. This is our show for Thursday, July 21st. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatal, coming to you live from the Little House on the East Side, and happy to be joined by a man. And you can probably guess, if you're watching along with the live stream, that he's not at home. He's not in an undisclosed location in Maine. He is in what looks like America's typical hotel room. I'm guessing it's somewhere near the Jersey Shore. You're going to be able to watch him as part of the family of NBC networks broadcast this weekend covering this Breeders' Cup win, and you're in. TVG.com, Haskell Stakes. He is TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, how are things?
Good. Got in a few hours ago. The room wasn't quite ready, so we right up until the bitter end. But here we are. We're on time. We're set up. Trying to get my keyboard to work, but we're good. No issues. I don't know how it is up in Saratoga. It's hotter than the sun again. Here, I feel like when I was talking to you when I was down in Louisville, I said it can't be any hotter. I feel like it is today. So hopefully it kind of cools off a hair over the next few days, but does not seem likely. I think we're in for another hot one this weekend.
It's breezier though. Monmouth breezier than Churchill. I'm hoping it's going to be okay. I'm gonna be an optimist. And as hot as it is here, if it's even 5 degrees cooler, I'll be happy with that. What do you know your broadcast schedule? Tell people where they can they can watch you this weekend.
We are 5 to 6 Eastern on CNBC. We will have the United Nations and the Haskell. Those will be the two races in our broadcast window.
Great. I mean, the two big grade ones, major divisional implications. After the live race at Saratoga today, we'll go back and take a look at that. Maybe first things first, we'll do a little remind people while we're here, and then maybe we'll go to our pre-tape. I think I want to get our pre-tape going before the first race, which should be easy enough, but it might be. But let's start with the big thing of we're going to look at a leaderboard and we're going to tell people why we're here. Horseplayer Happy Hour. It's a live stream every Thursday from 4 to 5. It is also a contest, not just a contest, but a series of contests with 3 different ways to win your Breeders' Cup betting challenge seat. We've had some viewers win them already this year, going the traditional route. You pay your $20 here to enter this game, and you advance to the Saturday qualifier. You win a $179 entry into that BCBC qualifier on Saturday, and you can win indirectly. But then also, your top scores for the year get used to create a tour score, and the leader of the tour throughout the year, that person gets a BCBC seat. And critically, that's not the only added BCBC seat to the pool at no cost to players. Any week, you can just play one random week and finish in the top 2. You'll not only punch your ticket for the Saturday contest, you'll also be automatically qualified into what we call our playoffs, private tournament at the end of the season. 80 players. We're going to do cut lines. 80 go down to 40, 40 to 20, 20 to 10, a final table of 10 that produces another BCBC winner. So $20,000 added to the prize pool at no cost to players. And I haven't even gotten to the best part yet, Matt Bernier, about why we're doing this and who it benefits. Yeah,
I was going to say, I mean, this whole thing originated for all of us to try to maintain sanity. But over the past 2 years, it's evolved into quite a bit more than that. This the juice, the VIG, the takeout goes to Thoroughbred Aftercare, because as we talk about week in and week out, and not just here, but on all the other shows as well, in the Money Media Network, the idea that the horses themselves are the ones that provide this entertainment for us, both from a sporting standpoint and a gambling standpoint. The least we can do is make sure that when their job on the track has come to an end, they have a safe, happy place to go, that they can ride out the rest of their lifetime and sort of enjoy things. And again, it's the very bare minimum that we can do is to try to help them when their job on the track has come to an end, for all the entertainment and sort of, and let's call it a spade, gambling entertainment that we get from them.
It's a great cause. And we have 2 organizations that are our beneficiaries. The Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance, at TB Aftercare on Twitter, I believe that's their handle. And they do the important job of accrediting the various thoroughbred retirement organizations, critical link in the chain. And then our friends at the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation are founding partners over on the In the Money Media Network side. They do all kinds of things. Horses that cannot be retrained to have other jobs, they find the places to live out their days, as Matt was saying. And one of those places, in a phenomenally successful program is the Second Chances program, where they live out their lives at correctional facilities and become teachers, really, to the men and women who are incarcerated there. And there's amazing stories. Actually, a guy I interviewed fairly recently on a podcast, it's worth looking up if you're interested in this, Tyler Frame. He's actually in Saratoga. I'm so pedal to the metal trying to get out of here. I might miss Tyler on this trip, which would be a total bummer. But anyway, I'm hoping it works out to see him. We mentioned In the Money Media. We both have shows on there. We're part of the flagship shows, Early Week, Late Week. That's racing's oldest continuous podcast, which is started in 2014. Can you believe that?
Long time, man.
Our, is that, if my calculations are correct, our 8th birthday in the
Yeah,
fall?
that sounds about right. I mean, this was, right after California Chrome's failed bid at the Triple Crown. So, yeah.
All right. We just have up on the screen now. This is great. We'll do a couple of different sets of standings. I should also mention Matt has his own eponymous podcast / YouTube feed, the Matt Bernier Show, which is really the founding stone on the In the Money YouTube channel. That's where my brain was going with that. But Matt Bernier Show, fantastic recapping analysis when the schedule allows. He's able to look forward on that show as well. Must watch, must listen. Okay, here's the tour leaderboard as of now. Right now, Michael Cavana in a 3-way scrum at the top with Matthew Abbott and Greg Kingma with 190 points. Last year, we had a runaway winner with David Browning, whose name I believe is on today's leaderboard. This year, it's looking to be more competitive straight away. Michael Domable, he was second last year on the tour. He's got 170. Matt Vagvolgi made the final table, 130. Ernest Hay Jr., an original listener and fan and supporter, an overall great guy, very good contest player, having a good year on the tour, 130. John Bull III, 100. Aurelio Garcia, 100. Robert Henderson is part of that Century Club as well, along with Kevin Walsh and Bruce D'Agostini. We'll name check a few more. Nathan Kaczynski, Stephen McNatton, Kirk Rockwell, John Gasper, Robert Capalbo. It's an impressive list of names up there. We'll finish with the other 90s. Scott McGovern, Rob Novicki, and Steve Nemitz. So good crew on that leaderboard. And now let's look at the other leaderboard. Let's see how folks are doing today. We are halfway home through this all Saratoga format. I feel like people are voting and saying they like the all Saratoga format. I know it's different than at the beginning of the year, how we said we were going to do this, but this time of year especially, it just seems to make sense to focus on such a big meet like Saratoga. 180 people agreed today. We'll read the top 18. Keith Nodskov, he's in front in a tie, 47-10 with Gregory Lewis. We've got John Rice and the aforementioned Ernest Hay Jr. looking to build on that total. It's David Browning is our guy who won last year. Now we have a David Brown field just to throw me off. Kevin Walsh, Ron Kaufman, Eric Brothers, Togo Travaglia, Nancy Spence, Tim Mazanek. I've said Tim's name 100 times. I don't know why I struggled with it there. Trish Smith, Nathan Kaczynski, Bruce Meyer, Michael Cavana, our overall leader right now. Talk about looking to build on a total. Amy Warren, Julie LeBoyko, Stephen McNatton. Right now, that's your top 18. We're looking at advancing to play on Saturday. But, all to play for with 4 races left in this tournament, Matt.
Yeah, and you brought up a point that it seems like the players are speaking, that they like this all one-track kind of format. And you can kind of understand there are other contests over on Horseplayers' sister site, Horse Tourneys, that run parallel to these all one-track sort of events. And I was a little bit worried that maybe we saw a little bit of a downturn the past 2 weeks with a little bit of an earlier start just after 2 o'clock, but come back in a big, big way this week at 180 entries. So the top 18 are going to qualify for Saturday's BCBC qualifier. That's $179 entry. And again, as Pete alluded to at the top of the show, the top 10 finishers will accumulate points toward the season-long tour, and we'll find out. Who knows? Those top 2 right now, they're sitting pretty, but they're only a few bucks ahead of everybody else. So like you say, we're halfway home, still all to play for.
A couple of partners to highlight. You mentioned horseplayers.com. That's where you play, where we want you to encourage other people to go and play in these games. They typically go live on a Tuesday, and you'll see it right there. Horseplayers Happy Hour. I'm not sure if I mentioned, just $20 to play. That VIG goes to aftercare. We definitely mentioned that part. But yeah, horseplayers.com is the place to go. And then we have the live stream as well, which will be archived on our YouTube channel. Please encourage other people to play because it's helping. Yeah, theoretically, it's hurting your own chance. I get that. But this is a little bit more about having fun, don't have to be a wise guy all the time. Encourage some other people to come on and play, because the more we play, the more we get to support these horses. Another partner I wanted to mention, and this will segue into our pre-tape, is the Breeders' Cup, without whom this wouldn't exist. They've been just tremendous partners, allowing us to create content, and that's, our partnership with them has allowed us to add these seats to the prize pool, which is fantastic. But also, Matt and I are big believers in the product and love that event, that wagering event, Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. Oh, I'm going to send you a picture to show, Craig. I should have thought of this earlier, of who I had dinner with last night. But this crew, who you'll see in a minute, one of the main topics of conversation at dinner was what a great opportunity this contests are just in general for horse players, specifically the BCBC, which I just texted to you, Craig, if you can pull it up. And when you see this crew of arranged people, you'll see why I'm saying that. But also the Challenge Series, the Win and You're In races, very much of a fun way. Give us a framework on these shows, on other shows. We've got two of them this weekend. One of them we're going to get to after sort of the midpoint when we get the race on. That's, of course, the Haskell that Matt is down there on the Jersey Shore to cover. But the other happening at Ascot, a place near and dear to my heart, the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Pipco Stakes. Major turf. It's a short field, but some major players in there when it comes to just the best turf horses in the world. Win and You're In for the Breeders' Cup turf. What a story if we can get one of these, or we can really dream maybe two of these to come over for a race like the Breeders' Cup. There's the picture. Me with the last three BC champions taken in Saratoga last night. Brad Anderson, that's me repping my baseball fandom with the crazy baseball shirt, wearing the same hat. Then that's Matt Miller in there, a slimmed down Matt Miller, I might add, looking well. And of course, Marshall Graham, 10 Strike Racing, another one of the founding partners on the In the Money Media Network. What a great thrill. I have expected Kinchin to just pop out from behind and photobomb.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say it. I'm going to refrain from saying it because it's mean and it doesn't make sense. But they wouldn't have been that concerned because he can't beat him anyway. So I'm in that camp too, so it's fine.
Let's go to our pre-tape on the King George Ascot this weekend. A race worth, when you wake up, don't wait till the racing starts here. Wake up and throw on Ascot. You're going to want to see this race. And here is my conversation from a little bit earlier today. In the show, very happy to welcome in a returning guest whom I've had the pleasure of working with in my role as the U.S. analyst for Sky Sports Racing. He is a researcher over there, and the tables are going to be turned now, where we're going to bring him in to talk about the other Win and You're In race happening this weekend. Going to be going down at Ascot. It is the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Pipco Stakes, and he is Callum Hellawell. Callum, how are things, my friend?
I'm very good, Peter. How are you getting on yourself?
Things are great. A little hot here, as I imagine it is there. How are you keeping cool?
It's been okay. We had 2 days of absolutely ridiculous weather, and in the last 2 days it's calmed down a little bit. I've been in the process of moving house, so I'm a bit of a sweaty mess now, and I have been for the last couple of days. So we just got to get through all of that. That's the main concern at the moment. And once I get all settled and moved, at least you're not doing it from my kitchen floor, which I thought we were doing the podcast from. So we get the pleasure of being in the car this time.
I thought maybe you were in the car for some aircon. I wasn't quite sure.
No, just in the process of being in between buildings right now. That's the best way I can describe it.
Let's talk about the big race on Saturday. Huge implications for just the divisional honors and just a super important race in general. For folks that don't know, give us a little bit of an overview of how important this race is in the British racing landscape.
Oh, I think you can't overestimate the importance of the King George. You're talking the first time the 1.5 mile colts, fillies, and they all get to collide with their elders. So 3-year-olds get to run against 4-year-olds, and that's massive. We've seen it over the mile trip with some of the races earlier this season, but now we see it for the 1.5 mile animals. And that's what makes it exciting, because we always see a spectacular performance. I can't even think of the poor King George we've had. I mean, last year, Adea as a 3-year-old. He walked into the paddock. I'd never seen him in the flesh, and I'm fortunate enough to see him in the flesh. And he was some strapping size boy. He was fantastic to look at. And I was backing Love on that day because I saw she's getting the way to allow it. She'll have it all on her side. She couldn't lay a glove on him. She didn't even see where he went and away, and he was brilliant. And it was a superb performance. And you just look for those things. You go all the way back to Montja and the performance that he did doing on the bridle in his first run in the UK. Galileo beating Fantastic Light. Enable winning it 3 times. I mean, the list goes on with phenomenal horses that have run it. And it always is a good race. And I think for those 1.5 mile fans outside the Derby, this is the one we all really do look forward to because it's a cracking little contest, despite only having 6 runners this year.
We'll start off with an overview of the field, and then we'll hold your feet to the fire for a final answer. But from a sporting point of view, which runner are you the most interested in seeing on Saturday?
Oh, I think it's got to be the German raider, Torquato Tasso, who I've butchered the pronunciation of it, but he is a star, an absolute star in Germany. He came over for the Arc last year, odds between 70 and 80 to 1. No one gave him a second look in the parade ring, and he absolutely flew home on a muddy Longchamp course. So he's coming here. He's coming to the UK. The ground is a concern. I know they were desperate to bring him over. Whether they'll be happy enough to go on the ground is yet to be seen because he is a bit of a mudlark, but he has a lot of class and I think it's truly underrated. And it's so sporting of the connections to even bring him over. They didn't have to. They could have waited for France. They could have waited for maybe one of the French trials. The Prix Royal comes to mind. But instead, they come over and they've given it a go. And that, for me, is fantastic to see. And if he runs, it would just be great to see how he gets on. I personally won't be backing him, but I believe he's much more talented than his odds will probably suggest. If he's bigger than 6s, 7s, he'd definitely be one you'd be interested in an each way place, even though you've only got the 6 run, you'd only get the 2. But he's certainly one to keep on the right side of.
Taking a look at some of the early betting, Westover has been installed as the favorite in this spot. What do you think of this Frankel Colt's chances?
I mean, he's got everything on paper that you want to see from a Frankel 3-year-old. He's got the size, he's got that amazing stride. He really seems to be a willing customer. The Derby was the real time we saw him shine. Although he came second, he was hammering home the line. Couldn't get past Desert Crown. That has led to this whole jockey debate that's going on now about who rides him, what they're doing, whether Judd might have made the correct decision, and we'll get on to that. But for me, as a horse right now, he is the one to be shot at. He's the rightful favourite. I think there's plenty of horses to go for him, but he is the right and worthy favourite. And what he did in the Irish Derby was quite frankly remarkable. He absolutely spread eagled the field. So if he can repeat that form, he'll be very, very hard to beat.
You mentioned the fillies and boys angle in this race, represented here by Emily Upjohn, currently second in the betting at 9-4. You a fan of her?
Oh, I love me some Emily Upjohn. I absolutely love her. Number one, she's a book 2 filly. Didn't cost the earth. Always a great story. She's in training with John and Sadie Gosden. It's a lovely, lovely story altogether. She came so close in the Oaks. We talk about a Derby unfortunate event with Westover, but let's talk about the Oaks. Like, Emily Upjohn didn't come out the gates. She fell out the gates. She was on her nose coming out the gates. She sits at the back of the field. Frankie pulls her all the way wide. She comes down the stand side, halfway down the straight. Frankie takes a pull on her. She's going that well. He pulls her back into him and then hammers home and is just defeated by Tuesday. Tuesday's form hasn't looked great as she couldn't even meet Westover in the paddock, let alone on the racecourse in the Irish Derby. But I think she's a monstrously talented horse. She gets all the weight. John and Sadie Gosden know what they're doing when it comes to training fillies for this race. Just look at Enable. Just look at Enable. Oh, did I forget Tagruda? Let's look at her as well. John and Sadie Gosden can train these fillies for this race. So Emily Upjohn is 100% my pick. A horse I absolutely adore. And I think she's going to be not only a fantastic racing filly, but I can't wait to see her as a breeding filly. Look at the size of her, what she can produce in the future. It's certainly something I'm looking forward to.
The most familiar name to a lot of American bettors who don't necessarily follow the current seasons going on, going to be Mishriff in here. What do we think of his chance to make a big impact?
Oh, the Mish. He does it all over the world. Saudi Arabia, check. America, check. UK, check. He does it all. I remember his win over here last year was brilliant because he finally landed that Group 1 in front of everybody in the UK, and we had to give him the respect he deserved. I think the story is not the horse so much, but more about the jockey. David Egan, who's been riding him all the way through, has the connection with the owners. Apparently, according to reports, he refused to sign the contract extending his hold with those owners. So now we've given it to James Doyle. James Doyley, as I like to call him. He is the man that can ride usually for Godolphin. We've seen what he can do in the classics this year. He did the 1,000, 2,000 Guineas double. He gets the ride. I feel for David because I think he's a great horse. But if that's the way the owners want to go, if that's the way he wants to go, they've got to make their own decisions. But it'd be great to see someone else on him. He ran with credit last time out. You have to give him credit for that performance on his last start. But I just think I could eat my words here and I could look like a fool, but I think he's past it. I do. I love the horse. I think he's a great animal, but I just think some of these youngsters are really going to put it to him. And he ran a cracking race behind Verdini last time, but this could be a tougher ask. I think these horses that he's up against are better than Verdini, who put him in his place last time out.
Broom and Pile Driver round out the field at much bigger prices. Any comments on either of these outsiders?
Put some respect on Broom. That would be my first thing you've got to do. Put some respect on Broom. Do you not see him at Ascot in the Hardwick? Hurricane Lane goes into the race favourite, that big dashing chestnut from Charlie Appleby's. He comes into the race. Broom, from the start, never sees another horse. Ryan Moore gives it possibly the ride of the meeting. I know everyone talks about some of the horses coming from further back and the ride that Nature's Trip received from McDonald, but let's talk about Ryan Moore dictating the fractions. We're really getting into sectional timing here in the UK. We're miles behind everybody else, and the fractions that he set were quite frankly remarkable. Even the Australians that I was around were like, this is very impressive. So Broom's got that Ascot form. He ran it very good. Now, does the form behind him look good after Hurricane Lane disappointed again? Nah, you'd have your concerns. But he is some animal. And if he can get going and he can start rolling, and I call it like quite relentless, quite remorseless. If he can do those things, it could be hard to pass, but he just needs to have it all go his own way. If he gets taken on for the lead, if he breaks poorly, it could be over within a matter of strides. But the price will be massive, and he deserves some more respect.
Okay, it's time for your final answer, Callum. We're looking at this weekend's Win and You're In King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Stakes. Win and You're In stuff for the Breeders' Cup turf. Who's going to win?
Emily Upjohn again. I think she's got the form, she's got the pedigree for it, she's got the team behind her that are so used to doing this with Philly. She's got the weight, the featherweight on her back. And I believe if she comes to her best form, I think she'll make the boys look silly. So Emily Upjohn for me is my tip for the race.
Great stuff, Callum. Appreciate you. And we'll have you on again soon.
I appreciate you, Peter. See you around. Hopefully we'll see you in the studio at some point because we miss your beautiful face.
Flattery will get you everywhere, my friend.
Exactly. And I'm loving the hat as well. Big fan.
Got to represent our friends over at Breeders' Cup.
Thanks very much. Send me one in the post.
Good stuff. Always enjoy catching up with Callum. He's got good energy, that kid. And for such a young man, pretty impressive knowledge of recent racing history. That's for sure.
We'll I would say you got an ace in the hole for the Breeders' Cup, don't you? for the European form. I mean, I feel like that's a no-brainer. He's got to.
We might have to bring him over. We might have to bring him over. We could have some fun with that. We'll see. We'll see if we can make some magic happen. They're heading out to the track now. We've got the new buglers. I haven't read anything about the new buglers at Saratoga. I'm surely someone has written this story yet.
The only thing I know is that Sam is recovering. He had a little bit of a health scare. He seems to be on the uptick, doing better, but was unable to make this Saratoga meet. It was his first one that he's missed in some really lengthy period of time. So hopefully all is well there. And unfortunately, I can't give credit to these two individuals that are playing the bugle, bringing the horses out onto the track. I'm hopeful to see them sooner than later, but in reality, I probably won't get up there until Labor Day weekend.
Oh, that's too bad. That's too bad. It's tough. I guess it's just all about broadcast schedules and where you need to be when. But we look forward to you getting here eventually. That's for sure. And I'm sure that story's been written. I'll try to when I see it out there, I'll make sure to tweet it from Matt Looms Boldly so we can learn who these interesting new individuals are. They were name checked by Larry Colmus before the first race of the meet, but I don't remember the story. If anybody knows in the comments, let us know. We have some good comments today over there, including our man Rob Capalbo, who we talked about before on our leaderboard. who says he's glad to have made a donation today to Aftercare, especially since it's Aftercare Day at the spa. I didn't even realize that. That's a good tie-in, certainly. And then he says also his handicapping today has favored beer drinking selections rather than the horses, and he likes your hat. You have a beer related hat on?
I do. Yeah, this is my local brewery in town, in the town that I live in Maine.
Funny
Southern
enough,
Maine.
we've both got Maine beers here. I've got a Rising Tide beer.
Oh yeah, okay.
They impressed the heck out of me in Portland. We did our fake Father's Day. Real Father's Day was the Sunday after Ascot, so I was not able to do a real Father's Day with the family. So instead, we conjured one, whatever that was, July 10th or whatever, and we did about 4 of them. And I mean, there's so much good stuff. Really, really continue to love Oxbow. We went to the Oxford, Maine location of Oxbow, which I hadn't been to. I'd only been to the one in the city. But then Rising Tide is a brewery I'd tasted at several places and I thought was great. But with 2 minutes to post, we should probably pivot to this race at Saratoga. Matt, you had mentioned you had an opinion before the scratches. Is it still an opinion after the scratches?
Well, yeah, I mean, probably so. I don't know that it's necessarily triple stamp, double stamp, whatever you want to call it kind of thing. But I do like the 4 in here. I like it's a gamble. I mean, this is the kind of horse that I think is very dirtied up on paper, has only sprinted on turf twice, and they were both victories, has won at Saratoga in the past. And you go back to the most recent run at Belmont, that was a 1-turn mile. The trip didn't work out. It was just loaded, stuck behind horses, had nowhere to run. Draw a line through that. Draw a line through the sloppy sealed run 2 starts back. And then you've got a pretty competitive effort against N3X Company, going a distance that I think is a little bit far for this one. This is what this horse wants to do. The question is, will he get the pace? Fingers crossed he does. I think the presence of the 1 can't help but ensure some early foot. So I like the price on the 4. It's a gamble. I thought we'd be looking more at like 5-2, 3-1. 4-1's playable here.
That's interesting. I like that call. I was thinking about Principal Stand. I think you're right about the pace being fast, but I'm just hoping that maybe looking at pace figures, Manny Franco will be able to just sit off that pace and get kind of a garden trip in this spot. If Principal Stand goes and gets some caught up and this becomes a 3-way go for the lead, this favorite's definitely going to be one to benefit. Big package, has the big closing kick, 3rd race off the layoff. My eye was drawn there, but I'm buying your case on this Kelly Breen runner as well. So I think what I'll probably end up doing here is messing around with those 3 in various combinations. I might wait till it gets, well, it can't get much closer, right? They're getting ready to go to the gate. It is post time. So I think, your runner being the better price and quite possibly better value of the 3, maybe key your 4 with the 2 and the 6 and see if we can't hit this. See if we can't hit this exacta here for a little bit in this race at Saratoga. I suppose if you were playing this as a contest, you'd stick with It's a Gamble, right? I mean, fairly pleasing enough price for a contest format like this.
I would have been happy with 4-1 with a full field. Never mind taking out a couple of them. And I get it. It changed the complexion. In theory, perhaps hurts the chances of the 4. But I think this is a very fair price. I mean, this is a horse that I talk about it all the time. Horses that are still able to produce solid efforts despite doing things they don't actually want to do. I think that's a major feather in their cap. And this is a horse that I think all along he's wanted to go short on grass, and he just really has never been afforded that opportunity too often. But when he has, he's won. So I think this is a good spot for him.
As far as the other near favorite goes, I just think it could end up being a tricky pace situation for Artemis City Limits. We'll see. Could also just end up proving the best of the speed, especially if Franco, tries to go and can't, and then all of a sudden you've maybe got the 5 blowing up that one and the 1 and going on with it. But I think at the prices, I'm willing to take a little stand against and say maybe they'll go too fast, and this will set up for some 6-4 or some 2-4 or some 4-2 or some 4-6. That's the theory anyway, as they get ready to go into the gate here. I just took a quick peek. There were originally all manner of storms forecast for later, but I hate to say this out loud because I don't want to jinx it, but it looks like we might be okay as far as weather goes for the rest of the day here.
That's good. That's good. And it sounds like things are going to be dry for the rest of the weekend, unless I was mistakenly looking at some other place, but I think it should be okay Friday and Saturday up there. One other quick call on the 5 here, the 2-1 second choice. I agree with you from a pace standpoint. Whenever this one has been involved in any kind of pace that's more than honest, he just hasn't had any finish. And I do think the presence of the one, whether the one can step on turf or not, kind of inconsequential to me. The fact that the horse is in the race can muddy things up for everyone else or inherently benefit some of the horses that could use a little bit of something to run at. So that would be my concern with the 5 at 2-1. I understand the logic for the 6, but you kind of said it for me. I don't see a giant difference between the 4 and the 6, and I'm getting 3x the price basically. To me that's too much to pass up on. I think the value is right on the 4.
Really looking forward to seeing what happens here. Really looking forward to talking after with you, Matt, about all the big stakes races at Monmouth on Saturday, culminating in the biggest one, the TVG.com Haskell win and you're in action there for the Breeders' Cup Classic. This big clash between Teba and Jack Christopher with some other serious horses in there as well. We'll talk about that after the break. We're going to be having a bunch more content on that as well. The Breeders' Cup, the Monmouth Haskell Day Roundtable show with Frank Miramati, Brian Skirka, and JK. That's already dropped. Folks can check that out. And then we're going to do something live on the day from a fixed odds perspective, hopefully with Dallas Baker and Nick Tamaro. Nick Tamaro coming into town, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. We're going to have we'll have a nice in the money crew represented at for Haskell Day as they break from the gate at Saratoga, and you can see right away the jock on the 1 really trying to ride and try to get into that point, perhaps correctly intuiting that their only chance is to get to the lead. But it doesn't look like Artemis City Limits is having much of that. I will say this, though, with the riding we're seeing going on here, it does look like a fast pace is assured. And maybe the key moment is now whether or not this 2-runner goes up into that fray or can sit handy. How fast do you think this is? Looks like 21-3 for the opener with some cut in the ground. We'll see how it plays out here as they hit the turn.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say. We're a little choppy on the video on my end, so I'm just trying to pick up bits and pieces. I'm trying to see if this 4 has any run. I'm frozen right now. I don't know about you guys, but the 5 looks like he's hanging on right now. 6 is trying to make a run, I guess, on the outside.
Yeah, that looks like the favorite trying to run down the second choice, but I think that Artemis did enough work early to burn off that other speed. I couldn't tell for sure with the chop on the video, but it sure looked like that just came chalk. Nothing to see here, but you don't.
Terrible effort for my horse.
You can't win them all. Up. Yeah, I didn't. It's so hard when you don't see the video, but I wonder if what happened is that really good aggressive ride on the 5 didn't maybe get some of those other runners off the bridle moving a little soon and just took all the starch out of the finish and definitely all the speed was burned up. That was a big effort. It was a big effort from that horse. Very nice run.
Yeah, and I mean, again, you're not talking about one that's going to be a sort of game breaker from the contest standpoint at 2-1, but always in a shorter contest, especially, I think you need to sort of retool your thought, your train of thought. You're not necessarily, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying don't look for prices, but inherently the smaller the tournament is, you need points. You got to be able to put something up there. So if you really like this horse and you thought you were going to get a fair number, if you thought 8-5 or 2-1 was fair on the 5, good on you. You're in decent shape with 3 to go.
We'll see how it changes the leaderboard. We'll get that leaderboard and we'll yap for a minute. We'll get that leaderboard and then we'll do that trick where we do the open of the show while we the open of the late week show while we are here on Horseplayer Happy Hour. I like that because it functions as a nice commercial for Horseplayer Happy Hour as well. Michael wants to know if there'll be any Woodbine talk. Not on this show necessarily, but I am going to try to do shows for both days because we've got Saturday. I believe they're doing the mandatory payout, and they got a lot of money that's getting forced out in that big pick. So that's something to pay attention to. And then Sunday, the big day, we were always planning on doing a standalone show for because we've got the key prep action for the Queen's Plate. We've got the plate trial and the Woodbine Oaks. So there will be other shows that cover that stuff. Typically on this network, I'd say that's true. Not always, but typically, if you're not going to find it here, you're going to find it somewhere else for the big days, especially when it's a key partner of ours, like a Woodbine or a Monmouth. So yeah, no surprise, we'll see some extra coverage there, but we're not prepped to talk about that now. I haven't even looked at Woodbine this weekend yet. My nose has been so deep in the New York and the New Jersey form, which we'll get to in a minute. Do we have a new leaderboard? Are these prices official?
I couldn't tell you. My screens are hotel Wi-Fi is letting me down.
Dodgy hotel Wi-Fi has been a part of this show since 2014, and it will probably continue for the next 8 years as well, until we come up with some technology somehow better. You know, when we're just broadcasting the show from the chip in our brain, maybe it won't be so bad. But
still
we'll leave
unofficial.
it to producer. Okay, it's unofficial, so we won't worry about
Still
that.
unofficial.
We will, producer Craig, when you see that go official, or when you see that leaderboard update on horseplayers.com, you can pop that one up there. We'll get ready to talk about these races. So you're only on TV for the two, but you're I assume, you know, fan interest wise, it's a card you'll be getting involved with, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you've got quality racing. You've got interesting horses in spots that I don't want to call them prove-it spots, but I think it's kind of a litmus test to find out where they actually stack up in their respective divisions. So it's definitely a day. I mean, it's the marquee day here on the Jersey Shore for the entire meeting. And not just because it's the Haskell and it's the United Nations, but again, a couple of these other races, I think they could go a long way in determining paths for some really talented horses down the road.
Monmouth, I think we're the third ever partner we had. You know, obviously we always name check Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation and 10 Strike Racing as the top two. I think Monmouth might have been number 3. And I'm embarrassed to say that since we founded the network, whatever that was, 3 or 4 years ago, haven't had a chance to get down to the Haskell. I'm usually trapped up here, but with all the new work we're doing for them and for bet makers, it just made sense to make it down this year. No change at the top of the leaderboard. I'll just name check everybody. Keith Nodskov, Kevin Walsh, Ernest Hay Jr., John Rice, Gregory Lewis, David Brown Field, not to be confused with last year's tour winner, David Browning, Trish Smith, Julie LeBoyko, Eric Brothers, Mark Rudy, Ron Kaufman, Joshua Bodie, I'm going to go with, Brendan Snodgrass, Victor Van Leer, Howard Johnson, Togo Travalia, Nathan Kaczynski, and Nancy Spence. That's your top 18 right now. Top 10 get tour points. I didn't explain this before, with the top person getting 10 down to the down to the 1 for the person who finishes in 10th place. So the top 10 get tour points, and then in terms of who advances, it's like a normal qualifier, normal feeder, I should say, on horse players or horse tourneys, where the top 10% of entries go. So with our 180, that makes it 18, and that's why we stop there on the leaderboard. You ready to talk about some stakes races, my friend?
Let's do it.
Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our little mashup show between Horse Players Happy Hour and the In the Money Players podcast. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatale, coming to you from the little house on the east side. Very happy to be joined by a man you'll be seeing in his favorite and preferred medium this weekend as part of the CNBC coverage of the brace of grade ones we have from Monmouth Park. I'm speaking, of course, of TV's Matt Bernier. Matt, what's up?
Pete, looking forward to this weekend. Like you said, we've got a couple of grade ones, 5 to 6 on CNBC. That's East Coast time. But leading into that, we've got good quality graded stakes action. You've got big horses. We talked about it a little bit. We'll talk about it here. I think these are pivotal races for a few names that we're familiar with about what direction they're going to end up going for the rest of the year and perhaps the rest of their career.
Couple of notes to kick things off. Early post time. They start at 12 on Saturday. Be aware of that. Card kicks off with the win early pick 5. Great way to build the bankroll for the day. You got some stakes action feathered into that sequence as well. And also contest. You've got an online only contest, $1,000 available to TVG and ExpressBet players. If you want the full rules, I have Brian Skirka on the roundtable show. He'll give them there. You can reach out to Brian at Monmouth or just check with your ADW, because the rules are a little different for each one, and I forget which is which. Just to make sure, register early and also make sure Brian knows you're playing. Don't get shut out. This is going to be a great opportunity. Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge seats are part of the prize pool. As for the races we're going to be talking about on these shows, let's go straight to race number 8. 3:29 is the scheduled post time for the Grade 3 Monmouth Cup, going 1 mile and an eighth on the dirt. Matt, who's your idea of the winner?
Well, and keep in mind, I had to do my handicapping on a plane ride, so I didn't have all of my formulator access. I did get to watch most of the replays at Logan Airport early this morning before I took off. I understand he may have been on a speed-friendly racetrack back in April at Aqueduct, but boy, Pipeline was good. I mean, he really, really ran that day, and there have been horses that have come out of that race to go on to win next out. I'm not entirely positive of the figs just yet, but you can take a look at those in any kind of past performance tool that you may use. I just know what I saw visually. The horse looked great. He's one that's always had some ability, and I know he's only gone 2 turns one time in his career, but I thought he ran really well that day. I don't think this distance is going to be the thing that gets him beat. And of the 2 Chad Browns, I think the household name is highly motivated. I've never liked him going long. I think this Pipeline could be very good. I don't know if he's Breeders' Cup Classic good, but maybe he's Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile good. And I think with a performance like that here, who knows? He'll at least earn his chance to find out in a race like the Jockey Club Gold Cup or something else down the road. How far does he really want to go? First things first, you got to run big on Saturday, and I think he's fully capable of doing so.
He's an interesting horse. I agree with you that it might be a little bit flattered by a track that seemed to be playing to speed, but took a bump early, was geared down late, and sports a pretty impressive looking work tab. I'm with you. I mean, it's not, this is going to be the favorite. Well, maybe the second choice with, as you mentioned,
second. Yeah,
highly motivated on the outside. But for me, this is the horse that I think is the most interesting, might be able to have the speed to control. And I could totally see this race having Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile implications. We're both with Pipeline in this one. We'll see how it plays out with the Monmouth Cup kicking off the first of 5 stakes races on this card. There isn't a pick 5 linking them all. There is a pick 6 if you go one race past this one, however. So a lot of different ways you can still get involved in that. But I think the pool that might be the most popular is this all graded stakes pick 4. They're guaranteeing, I think, 400 on it. It kicks off with the Matchmaker, this grade 3 for 3 and up fillies and mares, going 1 1/8 miles on the turf. And we had a fun conversation about this one on the roundtable. I was of the mind that Lady Rockstar might still be the most interesting one in here, and maybe simply because not trained by Chad Brown or Shug McGahee, maybe you can get a better than should be price on her. I like the way she's been able to quicken up in her races. 3rd off the layoff here for this ex-Haggis runner. Imperious, really, in the 2 victories so far in the USA. We'll see if Jose Ortiz can't guide Lady Rockstar home in the Matchmaker. Who did you like in here?
Without giving away too much about the roundtable show, what was the overall opinion of Lady Rockstar?
She was well liked, but there was a lot of, I think Frank made her Frank more agreed with me that she's really the interesting one. JK was going to try to lock it up using the other 2 Chad Brown runners, and then Brian wanted to bring Vigilante's Way into the mix, who Frank also respected as a backup. That was sort of a summary of the pick. So everybody had Lady Rockstar in the mix, but I just think that it might be an opportunity, when you can look, you play against Chad Brown when he has 3 good ones in the race, the odds are he's going to kick sand in your face. Having said that, I think it's an interesting opportunity just from a strictly value point of view to maybe take them on, just because I think Lady Rockstar may be a little underrated. What's your thought?
No, I'm in lockstep with you. I mean, I've loved the tape on both of the starts. As far as the class is concerned, who knows? Maybe she doesn't class up, but you brought up the fact that you've got 3 Chads in here. I don't know that this is the A string of the Chads, and maybe they don't need to be the A string. I mean, Chad's B strings are better than most A stringers, but I just think Lady Rockstar, I still don't know that we've seen her best just yet. And Brendan Walsh's name continues to pop up in these big turf races on either coast. He's going to have a couple out west on opening weekend. They're going to be, well fancied, well thought of ones. So again, I'm kind of with you from a price standpoint, from a potential standpoint. Lady Rockstar was the way I chose to go in here, understanding that Fluffy Socks can win, Flighty Lady can win, La Mista, I suppose, can win as well. I'm not crazy about any of them. I'm impressed with Lady Rockstar. I'm going to go with her.
I will back up a little bit with La Mista just based on the trip I think she's going to be able to get and the finish that she's shown, saving ground under Pratt with maybe the best finish of all. But I'll be better off, and I prefer Lady Rockstar in the Matchmaker. Let's talk about our third race of the sequence. It's the Grade 3 Molly Pitcher, 3 and up fillies and mares going a mile and a 16th on the dirt. And we got a big favorite in here who the panel was simply gaga over. And it's hard to disagree with them because one of the best trip handicapping angles of all time is making that early move into a hot pace. That's what Search Results did the last day. That was a very, very good and big race, her best. And I think it's really even better than it looks. Obviously, Chad Brown, unhappy with the ride, reaches out for Pratt here. I think he'll have her in a fantastic spot on or near, and I think she's going to take all the beating. You have any alternatives to Search Results, or are you riding with me on this one?
No, look, I loved her in the Ogden Phipps. And to be honest, I know maybe it wasn't the ideal sort of scenario, but I wasn't terribly disappointed with it because the way she was moving and when she went and ran down the filly on the front end, who's slipping my memory at the moment. The
Latruska.
Thank you, Latruska. How can I forget? And then she got run down by 2 really quality fillies in Clariere and Malathot. And you're right, she won the battle but lost the war. Frankly, I've never been crazy about her going a 2-turn mile and an 1/8, but I just think she's that much better than everyone else in this spot. I wanted to like Army Wife more than I do. She's just light on figs. If you're purely comparing them, Army Wife's got a lot to find, and you're going to need to hope that Search Results finds that final 1/8 of a mile going 2 turns a little bit too much. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think Search Results, you might as well just stone cold single here.
I do like Bonnie South a little bit just to run second because I think running style wise, it feels like this could be the kind of thing where Army Wife. Now I know it's Rosario, and you know he seems to always have something for the finish, but I just think that she runs the risk of getting cooked, and Bonnie South is just going to get. This is a funny thing to say because usually you say going to get the run of the race, meaning they're going to win. Going to get the run of the race to finish second, if that's a thing. We'll make it a thing, and we'll go cold 3-7, but most of the play will be stone cold through the 3 like you. That's just a supplementary 20% of the money bet that I'll throw in there. Let's move on to the Grade 1s, the races you will be on TV talking about. And I'm going to start this with the caveat that with the amount of work that I know you do in the travel I know you've had and the length of time that these PPs have been out, we're going to call these provisional opinions that you should watch the show on Saturday and follow Matt on Twitter to make sure you're getting the final answer. This is not the final answer. We talk about the final answer show. This is the pre-final answer show, but I can't resist the idea, Matt, of picking your brain on, at this early stage, who you think the winner of the United Nations will be.
Well, I mean, I just give you kind of my view from 30,000 feet. Look, I've loved Trabuven for a long, long time, but boy, as well as he ran at Belmont last time out, I think he's going to have a lot harder time this time around with the other pace signed on. So part of me doesn't really love him in this spot, and I think he may take a little bit of money as well off that big effort. Adamo, I've never loved, but I thought he was actually pretty good. But I got a little bit of a passive ride in that run in the Manhattan, and he still was able to kick on and finish well enough. I don't think this distance will be any kind of an issue for him. Gufo, the other one coming out of there, I've never been a huge fan. He has an abundance of ability, yet why do I see him lose races? I don't think he has any business losing. He's not quite in the same category of Sadler's Joy, but I look at them as sort of, as Gufo maybe is the new version of Sadler's Joy, where you got to time it perfectly. You need things to break your way. And look, he's going to come with this run. It's just a matter of, does he get up or not? So I'm looking around trying to find some sort of prices. Again, Adamo makes a little bit of sense to me. If you're really trying to go outside the box, and I don't know if I'm going to go quite this far outside the box, I think Glynn County is really dirty, really dirtied up. The most recent run in the Monmouth, no, it wasn't particularly good, and I don't have a real reason for that. Maybe a little bit shorter than he really likes. I think he wants to go probably out to this 1 3/8, somewhere thereabouts. But draw a line through the off track, draw a line through the yielding turf 3 back. You've got that Keeneland run, which, no, wasn't great, but he was caught up in traffic late in deep stretch, so give him a mulligan there. He wouldn't be the first horse to hate Gulfstream's turf course. Draw a line through those 2. And I know I'm going way back at this point, but his run in the Turf Cup last year at Kentucky Downs was solid. He rallied into no pace in the Mr. D at Arlington Park last summer. And prior to that, he ran into no pace again in the United Nations. So I get it. You got to really be squinting if you're trying to make a case. But this is going to be a 30-1 shot. We're not talking about a horse that's going to be 5-1 or 6-1 or even 8-1. He's going to be 30-1 in here. I don't know that I'm bold enough just yet to go out on a limb and say I'm going to pick him. I think there are far more likely winners, but I wouldn't be stunned if Glynn County ran decent on Saturday.
You make a super compelling case for this long shot, who somewhat surprisingly, Brad Thomas has at only 10-1 on the morning line. But I think you're right. You'll get a drift on that one.
Maybe
for sure.
maybe 30 is overzealous. Maybe 20.
Yeah, I think you're good. I mean, there's certainly going to be a price. The excuses are abundant, and I think you can just really write off the last race. No real setup, off a bit slow, shorter possibly than the best. And this isn't an angle per se, but it's a note on Glynn County. What a story it would be to see a Kitten's Joy progeny win the big Grade 1 so soon after we lost that tremendous horse. So it ain't going to rain, but if it did, it wouldn't probably hurt that horse's chance given his bloodline. It's a compelling case for a long shot who I am now going to try to keep on side. But it's kind of funny. I had the same idea as you, but maybe through a little bit of a mirror image, or maybe I'm just being too chalky. But the 3 Temple I thought was interesting on similar basis to what you're talking about. I mean, this is a horse that could finish. I thought in the Pan American 112 days ago, just moved too quick into that pace. That was one of those days where it did set up super duper well for Gufo. I thought Temple was a little interesting as a horse listed at 6-1 in the morning line, who could go off longer than that. Breeding wise, I really like the 1 3/8. And there's plenty of pace in here. You got to remember that Treboven, that probably doesn't happen if Channel Maker breaks, right? And then even put that aside, you throw in looking at pace figures, you got multiple runners that are faster than him to the early lead here. So completely different scenario for a horse that frustrates and doesn't like to win from a potentially tricky post. No thanks, Gufo. Not today. Not anyway. And Adamo to me is just, is going to probably be 5-2 and makes sense, but hasn't shown any real kick. This is a horse who's gotten setups in all 3 races and hasn't managed to win going up in class. So I don't like that as one of the favorites. I've got to reach for something in this spot. And I think Temple is an interesting way to reach. I think Glynn County is an interesting way to reach. And perhaps for me, the United Nations will be a case of in Mike Maker we trust. Doesn't typically go too badly in the longer turf races at the high level. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, you could do worse than put your faith in Mike Maker going long on the weeds. I mean, that's a nice spot to be in where you're going to get a couple of prices. And to your point, especially if you do like a horse like Temple, this is kind of one of those prime opportunities just because of name recognition with the other horses. He can't help but he will be no less than 9-2. I'd be absolutely flummoxed if he was shorter than that. And I think he may not float, but I think 6 is kind of spot on. I could absolutely see that.
All right. We'll see how that plays out. We now move on to the featured race of the day. We're going to do that gimmick, Matt, where we sort of roll through the race and then we'll do a little reset at the end that maybe we can cut out for social media. I don't think we can really probably hold back who our picks are going to be, but we'll see. Depending on how it goes, we'll keep the conversation free flowing. We've got a field of 8 going postward in this spot. Is it as simple in this year's Haskell, this Grade 1 going 1 1/8, that it's a match between Teba and Jack Christopher? Let's start there.
No, I wouldn't quite go that far. It's pretty close, but I don't think it's quite there yet, just simply because Jack Christopher does need to prove that 2 turns is not an issue for him. He's been fantastic, and if he gets the 2 turns, he probably wins just based on numbers. Teba is, I still maintain, one of the most talented horses of this crop. He's still lightly raced, and I cannot imagine, after coming off the suspension, that Bob Baffert would put this horse on a plane, ship him across the country if he wasn't ready to go. I just refuse to believe that. The reason I'm reluctant to say it's just those 2 and then everyone else, I've never loved him, but I'm a little more intrigued as each passing day goes by with Cyberknife. And mainly because that run at Churchill and the Matt win, I talked about it on my podcast at the beginning of the week. The 3 horses that have come out of that race have all improved their buyer speed figure by at least 7 points. So if all of a sudden you believe he can improve 7 to 8 points and he gets into the 101, 102 range, he's right there with those other 2. If you've got questions about how far Jack Christopher wants to go, if you have questions about how good Teba actually is, Cyberknife at 6 or 7-1 with a horse that can sit off the pace, isn't dependent on going, could be on the improve for Brad Cox and Florent Giroux. I think that's a very intriguing play. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm picking him. I want to take a look at a couple of the products to come out, but I think it's between those 3. Let's put it that way.
Okay, I think that's interesting. You're bringing in one who's going to be a big price, who I've heard is training very well as well. I don't think I can. I think I'm more of the match race philosophy, but I think at the prices you're going to end up getting, that's who you're going to. I think that's who you're going to end up picking. That's just my. That's just my gut.
Unless I see something that is like red flag, I'm probably leaning that direction.
How do you split Teba and Jack Christopher in terms of likelihood of winning?
Honestly, it's kind of a coin flip right now because I don't have any question about the distance with Teba, but you do need to blindly put your faith in the fact that the Derby was just the Derby, and you're going to give him a mulligan and say, you know what, with time, back with Bob, he's going to be good to go. You need to kind of just buy into that at a short number. With Jack Christopher, I mean, I've said it a million times. I've never been thrilled about the idea of 2 turns, but boy, I think he's a different 3-year-old than he was as a 2-year-old. He was brilliant then, don't get me wrong. And he probably would have won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in hindsight, seeing how bad that race has come up. But yeah. It's still one of those things. I see that pedigree. I see Munnings in half hours, and I go, we're gonna get 9 furlongs up on the pace, taking pressure. Then you're gonna hold off waves. If he put it this way, if he does, he will earn it, and he belongs in the conversation for the best 3-year-old. Period.
It's such a tough one. You know, you have these 2 horses who are figure darlings in Teba and Jack Christopher. I am going to go with the idea in this race that in Chad I trust. Couldn't agree with you more on the breeding, but I will point out that the 1 1/8 at Monmouth is a good 1 1/8 for a speedy, potentially non-10 furlong stayer. Like Jack Christopher could run off and win this by 5, geared down, and I'll still have questions about him getting the 1 1/4 for the Travers. You know, that's just the way I look at the world. But I mean, the idea that he didn't even that he had early voting apparently ready to go for this race and decided to stay home with that one and just send this one. It's almost like that angle when they have 2 and they scratch 1. It's like, I mean, the confidence is exuding off this one. Teba, I know Baffert is loaded for bear. I know this horse has never been a particularly good workhorse, but I don't like it when a not particularly good workhorse is working like noticeably worse than before he had all the hype in the world on him. Very controversial morning line in this race. Who would you have made the favorite?
Jack Christopher. Yeah, I found it interesting that the fixed odds, I believe, supplied by bet makers, had a wildly different setup as far as
evens price versus 5-2. On
that's not a small difference. You know, that is substantial. And again, we're talking about 2 different forms of wagering, and you know what, the bookmaker wants to make sure that there's not crazy prices out there. I'm more inclined to look at that as the reality as far as the likelihood of winning, the probability standpoint, that, you know, they're both close to. If I had to go about it from a morning line standpoint, I probably would have gone somewhere in that 6-5, 7-5 range, 6-5, 8-5, knowing that everybody else is going to be 7 or 8-1 and north of that. But I would have gone with Jack Christopher.
We'll see how it plays out. Let's do a quick reset here. We've got win and you're in action for the Breeders' Cup Classic in the TVG.com Grade 1 Haskell on Saturday. For me, this is a race where I'm going to go with the old standby in Chad Brown. We trust. Jack Christopher has just impressed me so much with what he's been able to do visually and on the clock. I get it. The breeding says maybe longer isn't going to be his friend, but I think Chad Brown spotting him here, the figures he's run, the situation he's going to get, I think there's an opportunity he can just go to the front and improve his position and run out an impressive winner in this year's Haskell. I know, Matt, a lot of people talking about this like it's a match race between Teba and Jack Christopher. I know you'll be giving your final pick on air on Saturday, but you made a very compelling case for another runner in this race. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can look at it this way. If Jack Christopher gets the distance, he's the most likely winner. If he doesn't get it, Teba sort of falls into that category, but he's coming in off of a lengthy layoff and a terrible effort in the Kentucky Derby. If it's not one of those 2, I could see a scenario where Cyberknife jumps up, takes a big step forward for Brad Cox and Florent Giroux, and upsets the apple cart at a very, very playable price. Got a couple more things to take a look at before the pick is finalized, 5 to 6 Eastern on CNBC on Saturday. But I do think it comes down to those 3. And purely from a number standpoint, from a probability standpoint, and a price standpoint, boy, Cyberknife might be hard for me to hold back on.
win and you're in action at Monmouth and at Ascot on Saturday. Make sure you tune in and check it out. That is all the time we have on the show. We are going to close it out here, but really appreciate all the guests who appeared on the show today. Want to thank our friends and partners all across the In the Money Media Network, our founding partners, 10 Strike Racing, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, our partners at Horseplayers.com. We appreciate them very much. And of course, the Breeders' Cup as well. This show has been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.